I'm here to tell a story that I already told and spent 15 hours editing just for YouTube to remove it for something that I didn't even do. Hello and welcome back to my channel. As you can tell by the title of this video, YouTube did remove my last video and I received the first warning against my channel. If I get 3 more strikes, my channel will be permanently deleted and my life as I know it will be over forever. Now, I wouldn't have an issue with this if I actually feel that I broke the rule that they're saying I broke, but I really don't think I did. And it's very frustrating because I'm sure that I will break rules in the future because I'm kind of just a moron. I need to save those strikes for like actual mess ups. So the video that got deleted was a story time about a new therapist that I went to see that literally came
straight from the underworld.
Like, she actually had to tuck her horns back into her head a couple of times during the session. I think the story's pretty funny and I think that you guys will enjoy it. So I'm going to retell it here and just try to be really careful so it doesn't get flagged by YouTube again. I will be inserting clips from the original video because honestly, at this point, I'm so sick of this story and I just want to get this video out there. After you've heard the story, I'll tell you why YouTube removed it. Please comment down below if you agree with YouTube, if you disagree with YouTube. You know, do I owe all my 31 subscribers an apology video, okay, for my idiotic ways and my irresponsible behavior? Because I'm happy to provide that to you if you feel that you need that, if you feel that I've wronged you in any way, okay? Okay. As always, I will be telling this story after I eat an edible, so if you're interested to hear this tale of terrors or simply to watch me interact on drugs, please stay tuned for the rest of the video, and if you're not, I'll see you later, skater. I'm pretty lit, I'm not gonna lie. I'm as lit as this wall back here. Anywho, so I'm gonna let Katie from the last video start us off with our little story about my therapist. Yeah, here we go. Katie from 48 hours ago, take it away. You pretty little lady. A couple weeks ago, I had an appointment with my doctor, and I'm totally healthy. Everything's totally fine. But he was like, hey, Katie, I think that you're great. I think you're a great gal. But I think that some counseling could be beneficial for you. And I was like, what? Yeah, of course, yeah, like I'm not crazy. I could go to counseling, not a problem. I have nothing to hide, no skeletons in my closet. Let's go, I'll go right now. And he was like, okay, like I'll refer you to a therapist and then they'll call you and schedule an appointment. And I was like, great, I can't wait. I'll sleep with my phone right next to my ear. So like a week or two later, I get a call from a woman, and so I don't get sued. I'm just gonna call her Lauren. And I'm really sorry to all the Laurens out there because I'm not going to say nice things about this woman, and I don't want you to feel personally attacked, you know, but everybody's got to be the bad guy sometimes. So Lauren calls me, she's like, hey, I'm your new therapist, here's my address, here's my availability, we book an appointment for Saturday the 28th. A fateful day in my life. There were no like red flags on the phone. She was very nice, upbeat, chipper. I was actually looking forward to meeting with her. She reminds me much of the men in my life, you know? A lot of up talk and small delivery. Anywho, so Saturday rolls around, I go to the office, and I'm sitting in the lobby and I'm filling out paperwork. On her intake form, the only personal questions it asked were if I was married or single, and then what my religion was, which I thought was interesting. I put atheist, and no offense to anyone out there, you know, your views are your views. I personally don't believe in the big man upstairs, but if you do, more power to you. Thanks so much, Katie. Okay, Katie here. Before I get into the next part of the video, I just want to say that COVID is very serious and very real, and you should be following local guidelines, wearing masks, social distancing, isolating as much as possible. And yeah, let's get into the next part of the video. But whatever, so I fill out the paperwork, and then a woman comes out, and she's like, hey, I'm Lauren, your therapist. And she wasn't wearing a mask, which was incredibly alarming to me because last I checked, we were in the middle of a global pandemic where hundreds of thousands of people are dying. The numbers are literally surging in front of our eyes. But I'm like, okay, like maybe she was like working in her office and wasn't wearing a mask and like just like forgot or something. You know, I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. So I go in, she's like, hey, go ahead, have a seat in my office. I'm gonna make a copy of your like insurance card. And I was like, cool. So I'm sitting in her office. Another woman comes into the office, and she like obviously is a staff member there, and she has a mask hanging around her neck. And she comes in and she looks at me and she goes, oh honey, you don't need to wear that in here. And I was like, what? She was like, oh yeah, we're not like super spreaders or anything. And I was just like so alarmed and confused. And then the therapist comes in, and I'm kind of thinking like, okay, maybe these are anti-maskers, even though it's literally a law in California that you wear a mask at your place of business. But I'm like, okay, trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, like they're anti-maskers, whatever. But I'm the patient, and like if I'm clearly leaving my mask on, I would think that the therapist would at least be respectful towards the patient and put the mask on even if they don't believe in it, which is idiotic to me, but whatever. But the therapist comes in and sits down, and she did not put a mask on the entire session. And honestly, I should have just like gotten up and left, but I feel like I was just so in shock and also aware of the fact that I genuinely need some therapy. So I was like, let's just like hope for the best. Like maybe I'll get some help with my depression and anxiety, or maybe like I'll catch COVID and like kill my whole family for Christmas. So I left my mask on. She went without the mask. Just a blatant FU to me, I feel. And this next thing isn't nearly as bad as the rest of the things in this video, but because this is a marijuana friendly channel, I thought it would be interesting to keep it in. She had some very old school wrong opinions about marijuana. Yeah, so Katie from 48 hours ago, younger, more agile, more excited about life, hopeful for the day. Take it away, pretty little lady. Throughout the session, she asked me if I'm taking any prescription drugs. And I was like, no, I don't take any prescription drugs, but I smoke a lot of weed. Lauren literally went on like a 10-minute rant, and she was like, Katie, I don't remember exactly what I said on the phone, but like, I really like tell it how it is, okay? I just like tell it how it is. And I was like, okay. And she was like, I'm just gonna be really blunt. Like, I think that weed is like evil. Like, I think weed is just like the most evil thing. She goes on to tell me about how, you know, weed actually causes depression and anxiety, and that there's studies out there. Not to go too into depth about that, but there's definitely not studies like that out there. All of my research, there's not one reputable study that shows that weed causes anxiety and depression, and in fact there are studies that show that weed helps with anxiety and depression. And in my case, I would say it helps a lot, especially at bedtime time. I have pretty severe sleep paralysis. If you guys want a video for that, let me know. I could talk about my friend Steve that crawls out of my closet sometimes and
Tries to take me into the underworld.
But anywho, so I was like, hey, like I like respectfully disagree. I don't, you know, I was like, I've smoked weed for a long time. I've looked into the science behind it. I really don't think that it does contribute to anxiety or depression. I don't think it's a problem. It's not something that I'm going to work on. And just to be like really blunt, because like why waste each other's time? Like if her entire intent is going to be to say that all of my problems are centered around smoking weed, and I don't see that as an issue, like we're not gonna mesh well together, right? And she was like, well, like you can feel however you want to feel about it, but like it's just like the science behind it. Like it's just like the science, like the studies just show that like it does cause anxiety and depression. And I'm like sitting here across from this woman who refuses to put a mask on when it's literally state law, and like science is literally saying you need to wear the mask to protect yourself and those around you, you know, preaching to me that I'm dealing with the issues that I'm dealing with because I smoke weed, which is just insane to me. It's absolutely insane. But whatever, we get off the subject, we move on, we're talking about other stuff. I'm telling a story about how I went to a friend of mine's house and we ate edibles and watched a movie. So Lauren interrupts my story and she was like, didn't you say that friend had kids? And I was like, yeah, she had kids. And she was like, were her kids home while she ate those edibles? And I was like, yeah, they were home. And she literally put her notebook down, put her pen down, and said, honey, that tells me all I need to know about that friend. didn't let me finish the story, which is like wild. Like, isn't that the point of therapy, is like to talk? Isn't that what therapists want? Is like I feel like I am a therapist's dream, you know, because I'm just gonna come in there and I'm gonna unload everything on you. But yeah, didn't let me finish my story. It was like, nope, that's all I need to know. You should just wash your hands clean of that. Like, she's obviously like a crack whore and like a horrible mother, and if I knew her name and address, I'd be calling CPS. But that's always such a huge pet peeve of mine. It's like the women that are like getting hammered and like popping Xanax every night, but they're against somebody like smoking a joint. Like I ate a 90 milligram edible and I'm like totally fine and chill, you know? Everything's fine. And then we get into her views on religion, which I just think is very inappropriate. I don't think that therapists should push their views on you. Yeah, so old Katie, get to it. We're kind of getting to the end and we're wrapping up, and she goes, oh, I see that you put atheist as your religion. We can get into that in the next session. Oh, and she also had a sign like on her desk that was like about Christianity or God or religion or something, which I felt was like very inappropriate, because not every person is gonna have that religion, and I feel like that shouldn't be a thing. I've never had a therapist want to like talk to me about religion. So I'm filming the, obviously I'm obviously filming this video right now, and as I've been filming it, you know, I have an idea of, I want to say this, and then I'll play this clip from the old video, and then I'll need to say this for like a transition, and then I'll say this, you know, and then I'll play this clip from the old video. I realized that I was actually sitting here like pausing, like I would say the little transition clip, and then I was like literally sitting here like envisioning the other clip that would go in. But I don't have to wait. I'm not watching the video. I'm just recording. I could just go from one to silly little goose. And then she's like, yeah, so like it's gonna be up to you if you want to like book another appointment, you know. I just think that the whole weed thing, like, I just feel like we're really not gonna like mesh well, because like I'm really for weed, you're really against weed, and I feel like we're just gonna constantly be butting heads about that. And I feel like I would be a better match with someone else that's like a little more progressive, you know, and understands all the millions and gajillions of benefits of marijuana. I don't want just a regular therapist, I want a cool therapist, okay, Lauren? And she looks at me and she goes, yeah, I could tell that you have a lot of animosity against me for all this weed talk. And I was like, what? Lauren, I don't have any animosity against you. I was like, your beliefs are your beliefs. They have no weight in my life at all. But because of what they are, I don't think that we would be a good match, you know, trying to work through all my demons and whatnot. But somehow we got on the topic of Christmas. And, oh, because she was like, what are you going to be doing, like, after this session? What are you going to do after this? And I was like, oh, I'm going to probably be, like, decorating for Christmas. And then she pretty much told me that she hates Christmas, which I was like, what? Like, are you actually
The devil?
And, yeah, she's like, yeah, I hate it. Like, it gives me so much anxiety when I see, like, other people and, like, their perfect, like, decorated houses on, like, Instagram. And I was like, oh, yeah, I think social media is really evil. I was like, I deleted all my social media. I mean, I also started a YouTube channel, so it's a little counterproductive. But, like, I got rid of all my other social media. It's like, oh, that's so good for you. Like, look, like, we're really not that different, Katie. And somehow we got on the topic of the movie The Social Dilemma, the documentary on Netflix. If you don't know the documentary, it's just about Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and the algorithms and how information gets fed to people and how we don't all see the same information on our phones, even if we search the same things, and just scary things about it's all about money and, you know, whatever, scary stuff. So we're sitting there, we're talking about the social dilemma, we're talking about how it's so important to really research and how just the information, the way information can be fed to us can be very deceiving and very scary. And then she looks at me, so serious, and she goes, And now, ladies and gentlemen, you've made it to the big kahuna, the reason I wanted to make this video. I just want to be really extra clear that the following clip portraying Lauren's views should not in any way, shape, or form be taken as fact or true. They are conspiracies. There is no factual evidence to back them up. You should be listening to scientists and doctors in the CDC and the WHO and following local guidelines. With that being said, Katie from the flagged video, take us home. You know the COVID vaccine they're going to give to everyone? It has trackers in it. And right there I'm like, oh, you're like a QAnon conspiracy nut. And again, instead of just getting up and walking out, at this point I'm like, let's hear all the crazy that you're going to give me. And I was like, really? She was like, there's going to be a GPS tracker that's going to be injected into all of us, and it's going to tell the government where we are at all times. And I was like, Lauren, you have got to be kidding me. What else? And she was like, not only is it going to tell our location to the government, but it's also going to show all of our vitals at all times. So apparently the government's always going to know like our heart rate after we get the vaccine. Oh no, I'd hate for them to know that. And then she looks at me and she goes, and you know what the patent number is? And already I know that the answer is going to be so insane, you know? But I was like, no, Lauren, what's the patent number? And she goes, 666. And then just like goes silent as if I should just be like vomiting or something. I don't know what kind of a reaction she expected. It's like, we literally just talked about the fact that I'm an atheist. Like, do you think the number 666 mean anything to me? And it's like, I never understand that anyway. Like people don't like the number 13 or whatever. It's like, what are we supposed to do? Like when they created numbers, was it just supposed to go 665 and then 667 and no 666? Like, and why is that fair? Why is that fair that this one number is like associated with the devil and is evil? Like, that's not fair. Like 666 didn't choose that lifestyle. Like, he didn't do anything to you. He's just the number that came after 665. Leave him alone. The thing is, I'm not super familiar with patents. I wouldn't expect Lauren to be super familiar with patents. I wouldn't expect the average person to be super familiar with patents. However, what I would expect the average person to know is that there's obviously more than 1,000 patents. If the patent number for the vaccine was 666, then logically that means that there's only 999 patents. Which is obviously not the case. If you know nothing about patents, I guarantee if you really thought about it, you would know that there's more than 1,000. And it's like, without ever looking it up, I could tell you that patent numbers probably have letters and they're probably very long. It's just so illogical, and the fact that it's like people are hearing things like that like on the surface don't even make sense, and that they're not even like fact checking it. It took me 2 seconds to Google it and find the actual patent number that they're talking about, which is a bunch of letters and a bunch of numbers that happen to have 060606 in it. I love a good conspiracy theory. I could probably tell you more about Bigfoot than you would care to listen to, but like, fact check your stuff. Like if I hear something crazy on the surface, I'm going to fact check it and be like, well, let me like really look into this, because for me a conspiracy theory isn't fun once there's too many holes poked in it. Then it's like, this obviously isn't real and this isn't fun anymore. So it's like, I'm all about conspiracy theories, but have a little bit of evidence or fact or reasonable logic to back it up. But anywho, so then she goes on to tell me that the main drug in the vaccine is called Lucifer, which again, that's literally just a name to me. Like, I'm not religious in any way. And then she goes on to tell me that she gets all of her information from this doctor named Christiane Northrup. And if you've never heard of Christiane Northrup, because I hadn't at the time, I looked her up when I got home. She's a gynecologist, and she believes and is very outspoken about the fact that she thinks the COVID vaccine has metal inside of it, and when injected into the human body, that metal forms an antenna that the 5G towers will be able to connect to, and the government will be able to literally control us like robots. She thinks once we get the vaccine, the government will be able to, and we won't even be in control of our own bodies or our own movements. And that's who my therapist is getting all of her information from, which also blows my mind, because it's like, okay, so you trust this gynecologist, but you won't listen to Dr. Fauci and put a mask on? Like, how is that? I don't understand the logic. Like, yeah, so that was my appointment. A few hours after the video went up, I got an email from YouTube saying that they were removing it for violating a guideline. The guideline was titled COVID-19. I should also mention the title of the video was Hi Storytime, COVID is a hoax and my therapist explains why. Basically in the guidelines it says like you can't say that COVID is a hoax, you can't say that like people aren't dying, you can't say that it's as bad as the flu, like these things that have been disproven and are literally conspiracies at this point, like you can't say them because it just causes panic, you know, and like craziness. And so I was like, okay, maybe it was like my title, like maybe, you know, it was my title, whatever. But it literally goes on to say that you're allowed to say misinformation as long as you make it clear that it is misinformation. And I feel that I definitely did that, you know, like I don't think anyone would watch my video and be like, oh yeah, COVID is a hoax. So I appealed the decision and I like explained like, hey, in the video I make it very clear that COVID is real and to follow guidelines. And I asked like, can I just like change my title? And they like responded and they were like, nah girl. I like searched like COVID is a hoax on YouTube and there's all sorts of videos titled like that, and there's all sorts of like clickbaity titles like that, but the content is saying that it's real. Like I was just watching the H3 podcast and they talk about COVID and they talk about the people that like think it's a hoax or believe in those conspiracies, and their videos don't get taken down, okay? Like I said, comment down below what you think. We're gonna keep, you know, just powering on through, and you know, if we make 3 more mistakes then YouTube wasn't meant to be, and maybe I'll come back in a disguise with a mustache or something and it could be like Mr. Keto and Kush. That wasn't funny. Comment down below if you've ever had a bad experience with a therapist like that. I'd love to know that I'm not alone in my search for help with my mental health Rudy Toonie. Alright, that brings us to the end of the video. Thank you so much for listening to my story. See you next week for another Keto and Kush adventure. And as always, please remember that to be healthy does not mean that you have to stop getting high. And also that COVID is very, very real and that you should not see therapists that believe in conspiracy theories. See you on the next one! Man, I was just watching this thing and they were talking about this, how this guy who's like in his 20s did this dance in 7th grade, and how like he doesn't remember the moves now, but if he tried to relearn them, he could relearn them really quick because the information's like stored somewhere in his brain. And isn't that crazy to think that like we have all these little hidden things that we know how to do, or knowledge that we possess that like one day could be triggered by like the weirdest thing? Just me? Okay.